All right, for our last video of the year, I figured I'd do a review of one that I've been wanting to get to for a while. This is Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Leader Class Optimus Prime. This is one I've been kind of interested in for a while. Obviously, I've talked before about how I don't really love the Michael Bay aesthetic in general, but something about that first and second movie, Optimus Prime, like it does kind of have like an iconicness to it, even if it's not sort of like my preferred take on Optimus Prime and what I would have wanted out of a live action, like movie rendition of the character. He is a very nice design overall. And personally, like I haven't messed with a ton of figures of like the first and second movie design of Optimus Prime, but just like from what I've seen online, this personally I feel like is the one that's kind of does it best, just in terms of what I've seen. And he's a pretty cool figure overall. Now he's definitely very, very beefy for a leader class by today's standards, but that's just kind of what it was back then. He's got lots of plastic, lots of complexity. He's got lights and sounds. He's a very nice looking truck mode. This was like really the last time that I feel like they did this version of the character and actually attempted to make the parts of the truck go where they're supposed to, rather than just like opt for doing like cheated parts and stuff like that for the most part. So I don't know. There's something about this figure that I really appreciate, just in terms of like how they actually get everything to where it's supposed to go for the most part. But yeah, he's got a very nice looking truck mode here. Now, obviously he does have clear plastic windows and he's got like some mechanisms in there, so you can see kind of gears and stuff like that, which is maybe a little bit ugly, but it doesn't really bother me all that much. He rolls pretty decently well. He's got a nice sort of like clean underside just because of how the legs transform. Now he does have the lights and sounds in this mode. Basically, to activate the truck part of this, you just press this little button back here and he'll make this kind of idling sound, and he is lighting up. It's kind of hard to see in this mode. Like you can kind of see it in the upper left corner there, but it's nothing too exaggerated. It's pretty easy to ignore, honestly. Like every time I pick up this figure, I'm like, where was that button again, just because of how well hidden it is, because it's pretty much mirrored on the side there, so it doesn't really get in the way. It's not like super easy to accidentally press, so I appreciate that. I'm not generally a huge fan of lights and sounds on figures usually, but for this guy I feel like it is kind of cool. I don't think that this figure originally came with any extra accessories. I got this guy on eBay for a relatively cheap cost, and as far as I can tell, the only thing that he's missing is like one of the clear inserts for his taillights back here, which is pretty good, because I got him for like, I want to say like 40 or 50 bucks, which is, it's kind of hard to find this guy. This guy's been kind of on my list for a while, but because he is largely considered, I would hope, to be the best version of like the movie 1 and 2 design for Optimus Prime. He is kind of hard to find, but pretty good looking truck mode. In terms of comparisons in this mode, just for a standard one, here he is with a Kingdom Sideswipe. Obviously, scales much larger there. I mean, he doesn't, honestly, he scales okay with some of the movie figures, but he's still even a little bit big for them in some cases. But yeah, that's what he looks like with Sideswipe. For another Optimus Prime, here he is with Earthrise Optimus Prime, obviously much bigger there. It's hard to believe these guys are both leader classes. I mean, I know he's like a Voyager and all the extra stuff that makes him a leader is not here, but still, just kind of seeing that comparison there is kind of funny. But yeah, to get onto transformation, it is quite the undertaking. I just talked about in my last video how I thought Studio Series 86 like Optimus Prime's transformation was a little bit more involved than I'd like it to be, mostly just because it's a G1 Optimus Prime. Like the transformation should be fairly simple, because he kind of is just like a truck that stands up, or ought to be, whereas this guy definitely has to accomplish a lot more to get things where they need to be. And it's really got some clever tricks. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I don't pick it up all that often because it is such a pain to do, but when I do, it feels like kind of an activity. Like it's that complex of a transformation. But yeah, to start off here, basically you want to take these side panels here with the bottom section of the smokestacks, and they will untab and just fold up like this. Then you want to take these bits of the smokestacks, untab them, and then they will like rotate around and then hinge down so that this tab right here will go into this slot on the barrel of whatever that's supposed to be, canister, I don't know trucks, but just do that on both sides. Then we can take this entire roof section and flip it around like that onto the back. And then for each of these panels, basically you take the inside section of this, it's on a bit of a slider, so it rotates out like that, and then you can kind of flip it around while rotating it in so that this slot right here will correspond to this tab on the other side. So it sits at this angle to kind of recreate his like backpack look in the movie, which I really do appreciate that they even put the care into like getting his back kibble kind of accurate. And that, you know, it's simple, it's clever, and that's pretty much how it sat on his back in the movie. So I really do appreciate that. And then what do we want to do next? Basically, you can take the entire front section here and it will untab. You can kind of split these sections like this. Bring this section down, and now this is where it really gets kind of crazy. We'll leave that tabbed in for now, just so it's not flopping all over the place. We even can, but basically you want to take this whole section. They will rotate down. Well, here, actually, we'll handle these first because you want to actually untab these back fender sections, and they'll kind of like double hinge up like this just to sort of get out of the way. And then the wheels here, these mid wheels here will actually like slightly hinge down just to compress slightly on the leg, which again is like not a super necessary piece of transformation, but it's kind of cool that he does do that. And then it's easier to do these one at a time. You kind of hold this in place and just like use the hip ratchets to bring down the legs here, just so they're facing down. And then I can even show this off on camera. Geez. Okay. Basically what you want to do is take this whole section with the front wheel. It'll untab from the rest of the leg, and then it will double hinge up like that and tab into the side of the leg. Also worth mentioning is he does have these like slightly spring loaded panels here, just like they have to compress like this for truck mode, and they just like spring out a little bit. Again, it's such a subtle detail that it hardly feels necessary, but you know, just another thing that kind of makes this guy feel a little bit more premium, even though he was ostensibly just like a regular leader class for the time. And then we can kind of fold down the feet here, take this entire section and double hinge it around, and we'll clip into itself like that. Take these intersections of the foot and fold them out to get the toes, and then take the front grille of the truck and just fold it onto the bottom of his feet. And that is a really, really neat leg and foot transformation there. And then sometimes these have a hard time staying in place, but what you're supposed to do is take these and kind of rotate them back like this. I feel like it just looks a little bit better leaving them up, so that's what I personally do, but for the sake of the video, I'll just fold them down because that's kind of where they're supposed to go, but it doesn't really mess with anything like, you know, articulation-wise, but that is kind of what you're supposed to do with those wheels, even though I feel like it looks just, the leg just feels a little bit more filled in if you leave it up like that. That's how I feel personally, but and then you take this whole section with the waist, and this is the first, you get to do a transformation gimmick here where you fold this in, and then when you plug it in, it'll make the transformation sound. If it actually plugs in, something's getting caught here, but come on. I don't know why it's not like fully tabbed. Oh yeah, you can't do that till later because of these pieces. All right, so we'll just leave that folding. I didn't even realize that. I guess I just kind of, you know, without realizing it, just adjusted that later. Yeah, with these pieces do kind of get in the way of that fully tabbing into place right now. Then for these sections, now this is it's kind of a pain. It's way more of a pain to get it back into truck mode, but it's not too bad getting out of truck mode. But basically, you want to split these sections. You want to take these pieces with the like canister here, just fold them out a little bit so you can kind of like loosen up these panels, and then take these bits, which actually like sit in a slot, kind of hard to see here, so sit in a slot like in the elbow, which is a real pain to get it back like lined up for truck mode, like while contending with all these pieces that also have to move past each other, and then tab the arms in together. But it's not too bad getting out of this mode, thankfully, but worth mentioning. But yeah, we just want to loosen those bits up, get them out. There's the other gimmick activated. You want to fold these up, and they will peg in right here, and just kind of leave them up like this for now. Then we can take these sections here, fold them out, and then the whole thing will kind of flip around like this, and then also double hinge around like this, and then you can double hinge the arms in to kind of like fold in on themselves. It's a really weird movement there, and they're having to kind of like move past this piece, which always gets a little bit scuffed up. And honestly, if this was just like not sculpted there, this would be a lot easier to do, but You rotate that around like that and plug those in, and now you've got the clearance to actually, you know, fully lock the waist into place there, and you get the nice transformation sound. Now, obviously, this guy's getting pretty tall, so we'll have to adjust the camera here so you can actually see him. I don't even think this guy is gonna fit fully on frame because he's so tall. I'll have to move him back here a little bit. But yeah, for the rest, okay, for these bits, I think you're supposed to just kind of leave them hanging out like this. I think that the way that it looks the cleanest is if you actually use this hinge to kind of like fold them under like that, so they kind of just like lay off the back of the legs like that. You can rotate them around so you can have them like on the back if you want, but I do feel like this is kind of like the most clean aesthetic overall. Those pieces do just kind of end up like hanging out as Kibble bits, which is a little unfortunate, but I think you can kind of forgive the figure for the rest of the things that he does. But yeah, then basically for the arms, now it's a little easier if you honestly just like get the blades out, because he does have a blades gimmick. You want to take these little silver pieces and just fold them up and then kind of rotate them down on the shoulder here. Take these bits, take the little canister, and it will rotate up like this to sit on the top of these panels, have it sit like that. And then for the forearm, you want to rotate it forward, take these panels that were kind of like creating the nose of the truck, and then rotate them to the back like this, slide them up, and then hinge them in. And I usually use this panel to kind of like, he just kind of have to have like his elbow bent. But I usually use this panel to kind of like wedge those in place. I think technically they're supposed to go on the outside, but on this one at least, this is like such a loose joint that it just wants to slide back down. So I always just kind of, you know, just kind of wedge it underneath there and have it kind of hold that into place, and then we can put this back. He does sort of have to have his elbows bent, especially when the swords are not deployed, but we can just do that on both sides here. And thankfully on this one, it's a lot tighter, that slider. So, all right. Yeah, these bits, is like, there's not like really perfect clearance here, honestly. Like, his arms are definitely the most sort of like hindered bit by like panels and stuff like that. But yeah, we just have that. And then for the chest section here, basically what you do is you take the head and try to not activate the gimmick, but you fold it around like this. Nope, I failed. And then fold it up. It's just so it's sitting forward. It doesn't actually like fold down fully, because if you folded it down fully, he'd be like looking up a little bit. So you kind of have it like sitting up like this a little bit, which is a little awkward. But and then for these bits, you take these panels here and just unfold them, and then the windshield bits will kind of like sit in front of the front windshield bits. And then you basically take these sections, and then this little like tab right here will kind of slot into this like track, so that he can still use like a gimmick, which I'll get to, but it's kind of a neat thing because he actually like, you know, you put those on a sliding track as opposed to just like tabbing them in. But that's pretty much something's not, yeah, there we go. That wasn't tabbed in fully. And then just a little extra like embellishments and stuff. You can have the smokestack like sticking up if you want. I don't remember if they're supposed to be in their movie. I think it looks a little bit cleaner to just fold them down, but you can fold those back up if you want. And then you can take these little like truck eyebrows, and they're on ball joints and hinges here to just adjust them. So he's got, you know, that more angular collarbone section there. And I don't know why the chest isn't totally sitting. There we go. And there we have Revenge of the Fallen Optimus Prime in his robot mode. And yeah, I just think that he looks spot on to the movie here. And he does it with like so few like fake parts. Like these little bits are kind of implied to be part of the nose of the trucks, and they've got like lights on them. So I guess those are kind of cheated parts. These little bits that hang off the windshields, I guess technically are cheated parts, but you know, only insofar that like they have the blue with the red stripes and they aren't actually part of the car. But you know, that's also like these, it's like I don't really consider that cheating. But yeah, no, he looks really good, and he's fairly posable too. Like his head is on a swivel here. Now it does have like the whole lights and sound, so you can't swivel it around all the way because you'd be messing up the wires, but it can rotate around like that. The shoulders here can rotate around on these nice ratchet joints, click out to the side. He has a bicep swivel. Now, he does have, you know, decent elbow articulation, but again, like I said, because of the blades in these panels, you do kind of have to leave his elbows a little bit bent, which honestly doesn't bother me all that much. The wrists can rotate. Now, this is part of the thing that makes me think that I'm missing some accessory for him. I was trying to look it up. I don't think that he originally came with a sword or anything like that. Maybe he came with a gun. I'm not totally sure, but I don't think, yeah, he doesn't have a waist joint just because of how that folds up for transformation. The hips can go forward and back and out to the side, and these wheels can kind of move out to the way so you can get at least that far out. He's got a thigh swivel. It is a little bit limited. It only really goes about that far, unfortunately. He's got a 90-degree bend at the knee. You can also kind of adjust these knee pads here. And then the feet are on ball joints. They're on these weird sort of like setup where it's like he's got like this track in here and this little nub, so it's sort of like pseudo ratcheted ball joints where in theory it's supposed to kind of like stay locked into a few different positions just so he can actually stand up. And yeah, you know, it mostly works. I think that he definitely is like does have a tendency just to like make the ball joints give under the weight of gravity, but it mostly works. But yeah, so you can rotate his feet and then kind of tilt them back and forth. I find that this piece like doesn't tab in super well, especially at the bottom, because like this peg in here bumps into this tab, and I'm not, you know, that doesn't, it seems like a design flaw there, because like this tab definitely has to, it's not like the feet are flipped or anything. Like this tab definitely has to be on this side to tab into there, and this peg definitely has to be in there to plug into the feet in vehicle mode. So you're mostly just relying on this like top section, but you know, it's not really the end of the world. And then he does, of course, still have the lights and sound gimmick in this mode. And for this mode, basically how you activate it is you take this little section here, you flip that down, and then when you pull this down, he kind of like flexes, and then his eyes and chest light up, and he says, "I am Optimus Prime," and it's in Peter Cullen's voice, which is cool to see. And you know, it's a neat gimmick. I do find it a little bit annoying, like during the transformation, how like when you flip the head around, it's very easy to accidentally activate that. But yeah, you know, as lights and sound goes, it's fairly innocuous. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, just for the standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe, obviously towering over him, and likewise here he is towering over Earthrise Optimus Prime. For a modern sort of like leader-sized leader, here he is with Studio Series Grimlock. You can see much bigger than him as well, and obviously he's also got like the, you know, electronics and stuff like that. So, you know, leader classes is definitely, this would be like a commander class nowadays, and even then it would be kind of above budget. But yeah, no, he's a really cool figure. He's like, you know, again, like I said, it's not my favorite design for Optimus Prime, and I don't generally like the super puzzly things. Oh, also his blades, right? In theory, you're supposed to be able to activate those by flipping these switches and letting them swing out. I don't really find that does much. It's like, but he does technically have flip around blades, which is cool to see. But I usually just have to kind of like, you know, unlatch them manually, because I don't feel like those switches really, you know, do a whole lot. But you know, it's a cool gimmick nonetheless in theory. But yeah, no, he's a really fun toy. Like I said, not my favorite design for Optimus Prime, but it's hard to argue with the fact that it is kind of iconic at this point. And you know, even though it's different, I can't get this to stay in place now. This is what I'm talking about with this panel, how I need to kind of like wedge it here, and it's okay. It's giving me trouble, but whatever. But yeah, no, he's fairly decently articulated. I do like the complexity of the transformation, just because it's so impressive that he actually like gets most of the pieces where they're supposed to be. Like, I really appreciate how much effort they went into like making the geometry work for making these panels sit at that like V shape like he had in the movie. And like, you know, he's still got some kibbly bits like these and the panels on the arms and stuff like that, but for the most part, you know, it's pretty accurate to the design from the movie, and definitely a lot more dynamic than that, you know, first movie leader. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to him, and that's pretty much all there is to my last video of the year. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews usually every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. I'm going to be back on Thursday, and I'm going to be doing my my top 10 figures of the year list rather than a normal review, but then we'll be back to you know, more typical reviews after that. But yeah, without further ado, here we have Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Leader Class Optimus Prime.